Hello Enterprise class. Right, we're going to carry on with our Harry Potter adventure. We're up to chapter 8, the Deathday party. October arrived, spreading a damp chill over the ground into the castle. Madame Pomfrey, the matron, was kept busy by all the students separate of colds amongst them. Her pepper cup potion worked instantly, though it left the drinker smoking at the ears for several hours afterwards. Ginny Weasley, who had been looking peaky, was bullied into taking some by Percy. The steam pouring from under her vivid hair gave the impression that her whole head was on fire. Raindrops the size of bullets thundered on the castle windows for days on end. The lake rose, the flower beds turned into muddy streams, and Hagrid's pumpkins swelled to the size of garden sheds. Oliver Wood's enthusiasm for regular training sessions, however, was not dampened, which was why Harry was to be found late one stormy Saturday afternoon, a few days before Halloween, returning to the Gryffindor Tower drenched to the skin and splattered with mud. Even aside from the rain and the wind, it had been a happy practice session. Fred and George, who had been spying on the Slytherin team, had seen for themselves the speed of those new Nimbus 2001s. They reported that the Slytherin team were no more than 7 greenish blurs shooting through the air like jump jets. Harry squelched along the deserted corridors and came across somebody who looked as preoccupied as he was. Nearly Headless Nick, a ghost of Gryffindor Tower, was staring mercilessly out of the window, muttering under his breath. "Don't fulfil their requirements. Half an inch if that." "Hello, Nick," said Harry. Hello, said Nearly Headless Nick, starting and looking around. He wore a dashing, plumped hat on his long curly hair and a tunic with a ruff which concealed the fact that his head was almost completely severed. He was pale as smoke, and Harry could see right through him in the dark sky and torrential rain outside. "You look troubled, young Potter," said Nick, folding a transparent letter as he spoke and tucking it inside of his doublet. "So do you," said Harry. "Ah," Nearly Headless Nick waved an elegant hand. "A matter of non-importance. It's not as though I really wanted to join, though I'd applied, but apparently I don't fulfil the requirements." In spite of his airy tone, there was a look of great bitterness on his face. "But you would think, wouldn't you," he erupted, suddenly pulling the letter out of his pocket, "that getting hit 45 times in the neck with a blunt axe would qualify you to join the Headless Hunt?" "Oh, yes," said Harry, who was obviously supposed to agree. "I mean, nobody wishes more than I do that it had been a quick and clean, and my head had come off properly. I mean it. It would have saved me a great deal of pain and ridicule. However," the Nearly Headless Nick shook the letter in front of him furiously, "we can only accept huntsmen whose heads have parted completely of their bodies. You will appreciate that it would be impossible otherwise for members to participate in hunt activities such as horseback head juggling and head polo. It is with the greatest regret, therefore, I must inform you that you do not fulfil our requirements. With very best wishes, Sir Patrick Delaney Padmore." Fuming, Nearly Headless Nick stuffed the letter away. "Half an inch of skin and sinew holding my neck on, Harry. Most people would think it's good and beheaded, but oh no, it's not enough for Sir properly decapitated Podmore." Nearly Headless Nick took several deep breaths and then said in a far calmer tone, "So, what's bothering you? Anything I can do?" "No," said Harry. "Not unless you know where we can get 7 free Nimbus 2001s for our match against the The rest of Harry's sentence was drowned by a high-pitched mewing from somewhere near his ankles. He looked down and found himself gazing at a pair of lamp-like yellow eyes. It was Mrs. Norris, the skeletal grey cat who was used by the caretaker and Argus Filch as a sort of deputy to his endless battle against students. "You'd better get out of here, Harry," said Nick quickly. "Filch isn't in a good mood. He got flu and some third years accidentally plastered frog brains all over the ceiling in the dungeon." He's been cleaning all morning, and if he sees you dripping mud all over the place—" "Right," said Harry, backing away from the accusing stare of Mrs. Norris, but not quickly enough. Drawn to the spot by the mysterious power that seemed to connect him with this foul cat, Argus Filch burst suddenly through a tapestry to Harry's right, wheezing and looking wildly for the rule breaker. There was a thick tartan scarf bound around his neck, and his nose was unusually purple. "Filth!" he shouted, his jowls a-quiver, his eyes popping alarmingly as he pointed at the muddy puddle that had dripped from Harry's Quidditch robes. "Mess and muck everywhere. I've had enough of it. I tell you, follow me, Potter." So Harry waved a gloomy goodbye to Nearly Headless Nick and followed Filch back downstairs, doubling the number of muddy footprints on the floor. Harry had never been inside Filch's office before. It was a place most students avoided. The room was dingy and windowless, lit by a single oil lamp dangling from the low ceiling. A faint smell of fried fish lingered about the place. Wooden filing cabinets stood around the walls. From their labels, Harry could see that they would contain details of every pupil Filch had ever punished. Fred and George Weasley had an entire drawer to themselves. A highly polished collection of charms and manacles hung on the wall behind Filch's desk. It was common knowledge that he was always begging Dumbledore to let him suspend students by their ankles from the ceiling. Filch grabbed a quill from his pot on the desk and began shuffling around looking for parchment. "Dung," he muttered furiously. "Great sizzling dragon bogies, frogs' brains, rats' intestines. I've had enough of it. Make an example. Where's that form? Yes." He retrieved a large roll of parchment from his desk drawer and stretched it out in front of him, dipping his long black quill into the ink pot. "Name? Harry Potter. Crime? It's only a bit of mud," said Harry. "It's only a bit of mud to you, boy, but to me it's an extra hour scrubbing," shouted Filch, a drip shivering unpleasantly off the end of his bulbous nose. "Crime befouling the castle," suggested Sentence. Dabbing his streaming nose, Filch squinted unpleasantly at Harry, who waited with bated breath for his sentence to fall. But as Filch lowered his quill, there was a great bang on the ceiling of the office, which made the oil lamp rattle. "Peeves!" Filch roared, flinging down his quill in a transport of rage. "I'll have you this time, I'll have you!" And without a backwards glance at Harry, Filch ran flat-footed from the office, Mrs. Norris streaking alongside him. Peeves was the school poltergeist, a grinning, airborne menace who lived to cause havoc and distress. Harry didn't much like Peeves, but couldn't help feeling grateful for his timing. Hopefully, whatever Peeves had done, and it sounded as though he'd wrecked something very big this time, it would distract Filch from Harry. Thinking that he should probably wait for Filch to come back, Harry sank into a moth-eaten chair next to the desk. There was only one thing on it apart from the half-completed form, a large, glossy purple envelope with silver lettering on the front. With a quick glance at the door, he checked that Filch wasn't on his way back, and Harry picked up the envelope to read. "Quick Spells, a correspondence course in beginner's magic." Intrigued, Harry flicked the envelope open and pulled out a sheaf of parchment inside. More curly silver writing on the front page said, "Feel out of step in the world of modern magic? Find yourself making excuses not to perform simple spells? Ever been taunted for your woe wand work? There's an answer. Quick Spells is an all-new fail-safe, quick result, easy learn course. Hundreds of wizards and witches have benefited from Quick Spells method. Madam Z. Nettles of Topsham writes, "I had no memory for incantations, and my potions were a family joke. Now, after Quick Spells course, I am the centre of attention at parties, and friends beg for my recipe for the skillantation solution." Warlock DJ Prod of Didsbury says, "My wife used to sneer at my feeble charms, but 1 month into your fabulous Quick Spell course, I succeeded in turning her into a yak. Thank you, Quick Spells." Fascinated, Harry thumbed through the rest of the envelope's content. Why on earth did Filch want a Quick Spells course? Did this mean he wasn't a proper wizard? Harry was just reading Lesson 1, Holding Your Wand, Some Useful Tips, when shuffling footsteps outside him told him Filch was coming back. Stuffing the parchment back into the envelope, Harry threw it back onto the desk just as the door opened. Filch looked triumphant. That vanishing cabinet was extremely valuable, he was saying gleefully to Mrs. Norris. We'll have Peeves out this time, my sweet. His eyes fell on Harry and then darted to the quick spell envelope, which Harry realised was too late and was laying 2 feet away from where it had started. Filch's pasty face went brick red. Harry braced himself for a tidal wave of fury. Filch hobbled across the desk, snatched up the envelope and threw it in the drawer. Did you read it? He spluttered. No, Harry lied quickly. Filch's knobbly hands were twisting together. If I thought you'd read my private, not that it's mine, for a friend. But that's as it may be, however. Harry was staring at him, alarmed. Filch had never looked madder. His eyes were popping. A tick was going in one of his pouchy cheeks. And the tartan scarf didn't help. Very well. Go. And don't breathe a word. Not that. However, if you didn't read, go now. I have to write up Peeves' report. Go. Amazed at his look, Harry sped out of the office and up the corridor back upstairs. To escape from Filch's office without punishment was probably some kind of school record. Harry, did it work? Nearly headless Nick came gliding out of the classroom. Behind him, Harry could see a wreckage of large black and gold cabinets which appeared to have been dropped from a great height. I persuaded Peeves to crash it right over Filch's office, said Nick eagerly. Thought it might distract him. Was that you? Harry said gratefully. Yeah, it worked. I didn't even get detention. Thanks, Nick. They set off up the corridor together. Nearly headless Nick, Harry noticed, was still holding Sir Patrick's rejection letter. I wish there was something I could do for you about the headless hunt, Harry said. Nearly headless Nick stopped in his tracks and Harry walked right through him. He wished he hadn't. It was like stepping through an icy shower. But there is something you could do for me, said Nick excitedly. Harry, would it be too much to ask? But no, you wouldn't want... What is it? Said Harry. Well, this Halloween will be my 500th Deathday, said Nearly Headless Nick, drawing himself up and looking dignified. Oh, said Harry, not sure whether he should look sorry or happy about this. Right. I'm holding a party down in one of the rumour dungeons. Friends will be coming from all over the country. It would be such an honour if you would attend. Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger will be most welcome too, of course, but I dare say you'd rather go to the school feast. He watched Harry on tender hooks. No, said Harry quickly, I'll come. My dear boy Harry Potter at my Deathday party. And, he hesitated, looking excited, do you think you could possibly mention to Sir Patrick how very frightening and impressive you find me? Of course, said Harry. Nearly Headless Nick beamed at him. Deathday party, said Hermione Granger keenly, when Harry had changed at last and joined her and Ron in the common room. I bet there aren't many living people who can say they've been to one of those. It'll be fascinating. Why would anybody want to celebrate the day they died? Said Ron, who was halfway through his potions homework and grumpy. Sounds dead depressing to me. Rain was still lashing at the window, which was now inky black, but inside it looked bright and cheerful. The firelight glowed over the countless squashy armchairs where people sat reading and talking, doing homework, or in the case of Fred and George Weasley, trying to find out what would happen if you fed a filibust firework to a salamander. Fred had rescued the brilliant orange fire-dwelling lizard from a Care of Magical Creatures class, and now it was smouldering gently on the table, surrounded by a knot of curious people. Harry was on point of telling Ron and Hermione about Filch and the Quickspell course when the salamander suddenly whizzed into the air, emitted a loud spark and banged as it whirled wildly around the room. The sight of Percy bellowing himself hoarse at Fred and George, the spectacular display of tangerine stars showering from the salamander's mouth, and its escape into the fire with accompanying explosions drove both Filch and the Quickspell envelope from Harry's mind. By the time Halloween arrived, Harry was regretting his rash promise to go to the Deathday party. The rest of the school happily anticipated their Halloween feast. The Great Hall had been decorated with the usual live bats. Hagrid's vast pumpkins had been carved into lanterns large enough for 3 men to sit in, and there were rumours that Dumbledore had booked a troupe of dancing skeletons for the entertainment. A promise is a promise, Hermione reminded Harry bossily. You said you'd go to the Deathday party. So at 7 o'clock, Harry and Ron and Hermione walked straight past the doorway into the packed Great Hall, which was glitteringly inviting, with gold plates and candles, and directed their steps instead towards the dungeon. The passageway led to Nearly Headless Nick's party, and had been lined with candles, though the effect was far from cheerful. With the long, thin, jet black tapers all burning bright blue, casting a dim, ghostly light even on their own living faces. The temperature dropped with every step they took. As Harry shivered, he drew his robes tightly around him. He heard what sounded like thousands of fingernails scraping an enormous blackboard. Is that supposed to be music? Ron whispered as they turned a corner and saw Nearly Headless Nick standing in a doorway hung with black velvet drapes. My dear friends, he said mournfully, welcome, welcome, so pleased you could come. He swept off his plumed hat and bowed them inside. It was an incredible sight. The dungeon was full of hundreds of pearly white translucent people, mostly drifting around a crowded dance floor, waltzing to a dreadful quavering sound of 30 musical saws playing by an orchestra of black draped platform. A chandelier overhead blazed midnight blue with 1,000 more black candles. Their breath rose in a mist before them. It was like stepping into a freezer. Shall we have a look around? Harry suggested, wanting to warm his feet. Careful not to walk through anyone, said Ron nervously, and they set off around the edge of the dance floor. They passed a group of gloomy nuns, a ragged man wearing chains, and a fat friar. A cheerful Hufflepuff ghost who was talking to a knight with an arrow sticking in his forehead. Harry wasn't surprised to see that the Bloody Baron, a gaunt, staring Slytherin ghost covered in silver bloodstains, was being given a wide berth by the other ghosts. Oh no, said Hermione, stopping abruptly. Turn back, turn back. I don't want to talk to Moaning Myrtle. Who? Said Harry, as they backtracked quickly. She haunts the girls' toilets on the first floor, said Hermione. She haunts the toilets? Yes. It's been out of order all year because she keeps having tantrums and flooding the place. I never went in there anyway if I could avoid it. It's awful trying to go to the loo with her wailing at you. Look, food, said Ron. On the other side of the dungeon was a long table, also covered in black velvet. They approached it eagerly, but the next moment had them stopped in their tracks, horrified. The smell was quite disgusting. Large rotten fish were laid on handsome silver platters. Cakes, burned charcoal black, were heaped on slavers. There was a great maggoty haggis, a slab of cheese covered in fir-green mould, and in pride of place an enormous grey cake in the shape of a tombstone with a tar-like icing forming the words, Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, died the 31st of October, 1492. Harry watched amazed as the portly ghost approached the table, crouched low and walked through it, his mouth held wide so that as it passed one of the stinking salmons. Can you taste if you walk through it? Harry asked him. Almost, said the ghost sadly as he drifted away. I expect they let it rot to get a stronger flavour, said Hermione, knowledgeably pinching her nose and leaning closer to look at the putrid haggis. Can we move? I feel sick, said Ron. They had barely turned around, however, when a little man stooped suddenly from under the table and came to a halt in mid-air before them. Hello, Peeves, said Harry cautiously. Unlike the ghosts around them, Peeves was a poltergeist. and he was the very reverse of a pale and transparent. He was wearing a bright orange party hat, a revolving bow tie, and a broad grin on his wide, wicked face. "Nibbles?" he said sweetly, offering them a bowl of peanuts covered in fungus. "No, thanks," said Hermione. "Heard you talking about poor Myrtle," said Peeves, his eyes dancing. "Rude." "You was about poor Myrtle?" He took a deep breath and bellowed, "Oh, Myrtle!" "Oh, no, Peeves, don't tell her what I said. She'll be really upset." Hermione whispered frantically, "I didn't mean it. I don't mind her. Hello, Myrtle." A squat ghost of a girl had glided over. She had the gloomiest face Harry had ever seen, half hidden behind lark hair and thick pearly spectacles. "What?" she said sulkily. "How are you, Myrtle?" said Hermione in a falsely bright voice. "It's nice to see you out of the toilet." Myrtle sniffed. "Miss Granger was just talking about you," said Peeves slyly in Myrtle's ear. "Just saying how nice you look tonight," said Hermione, glaring at Peeves. Myrtle eyed Hermione suspiciously. "You're making fun of me," she said, silver tears welling rapidly in her small see-through eyes. "No, honestly, didn't I just say how nice Myrtle was looking?" said Hermione, nudging Harry and Ron painfully in the ribs. "Oh, yeah, she did." "Don't lie to me," Myrtle gasped, tears now flooding down her face, while Peeves chuckled happily over her shoulder. "Do you think I don't know what people call me behind my back? Fat Myrtle, ugly Myrtle, miserable, moaning, moping Myrtle." "You've missed out Spotty," Peeves hissed in her ear. Moaning Myrtle burst into anguished sobs and fled from the dungeon. Peeves shot after her, pelting her with mouldy peanuts, yelling, "Spotty, Spotty!"